Most of the major denominations of Hinduism hold one god to be absolute and superior to all others: Shiva for the Shaivites, Vishnu for the Vaishnavites, and Devi for the Shaktis. However, there is one tradition that actually rejects the subordination of divinities to any other. They also reject the equating of any divinity or a supreme divinity with Brahman, ultimate reality. This movement is called Smartism. Smarta is derived from the word smrti, that is, which is written down. As I have mentioned previously, this is the corpus of text which was written after Shruti, that which is heard, Vedic texts. Shruti is taken to be revealed truth from the divine, whilst smrti is likened to interpretation of this truth. Smarta can be based on smrti, tradition, or orthodoxy. However, it can also mean someone who follows in the tradition of Smartism. As I discussed in my introduction to classical Indian thought, following the Vedic period when Shruti texts were formed, there was an explosion of heterodox Shramanic belief systems, such as Buddhism and Jainism. In response to the Shramanic challenge, the Vedic Brahminical system evolved, answering some of the challenges and adopting some of its opponents' views. During this period arose the 6 schools, or darshanas, of early Indian philosophy, which we buttress the Brahminical system. 4 would emphasize causal reasoning while still accepting the Vedas as valid. These are the pairings of Samkhya and Yoga, as well as Vaisheshika and Nyaya, and they are called Haitaku. The other 2, Mimamsa and Vedanta, formed the so-called smarter schools, as they based truth on Shruti alone and were involved in the interpretation of these Vedic texts through the composition of Smrti works. Around the beginning of the 1st century CE, there was an enormous upheaval from an intellectual standpoint. In the vacuum left behind by the collapse of the Mauryan Empire, new intellectual and religious traditions were being established as Brahmanism combined with the 6 darshanas, popular religion, and aspects of Shramanic belief. Although there is no name change within the system, many ethics scholars describe this as the period where Hinduism emerges from Brahmanism, although I again note this is an outsider's terminology. This period saw the emergence and crystallization of Shaivism, Vaishnavism, and Shaktism, as well as the revival of the Smarta tradition. The Smarta tradition embraced the monism of early Vedanta teaching and attempted to integrate popular religion with as many gods and forms within this non-dual understanding of the oneness of Atman and Brahman. In doing this, Smarta developed a twofold understanding of Brahman: Brahman with attributes and Brahman without attributes. The saguna Brahman, the Brahman with attributes, is the manifold Deva and Devi which are worshipped throughout the Indic world. However, real Brahman is nirguna, Brahman without attributes, the formless and absolute truth. In this sense, the many divine beings should be seen as almost like a ladder or path that leads the worshipper to understanding and worshipping the true and unnatured nirguna Brahman. Of all the proponents of this Smarta theology, perhaps the most famous and influential was the 8th century thinker Adi Shankara. He developed the late classical school of Advaita Vedanta, literally meaning not duality. This formed the basis for later criticism and the construction of Vedanta philosophical positions, which were mainly developed in the Vaishnavite sect. Adi Shankara's influence is immense, and his philosophy is important in its own right, so rather than addressing it as merely an adjunct to the broader Smarta movement, I will treat of him in a separate video. Because the Smarta see all divinities as merely aspects or cultivated saguna, Brahman, rather than true Brahman without attributes, they do not elevate any one god over another. As such, in many domestic shrines and Smarta temples, we see the Panchayatana Puja, a collection of 5 gods including Surya, the Vedic sun god, Vishnu, Shiva, Devi, and Ganesh, another popular god for overcoming obstacles. Smarta worshippers may choose any saguna divinity as their Ishta Devata, literally their cherished or preferred divinity. For many, they will then place their individual Ishta Devata at the center of any of their domestic shrine. However, although they have selected a single god, this does not elevate said god over the others, but merely identifies them as a focus for transcending the saguna to, eventually, reach the nirguna Brahman. Smarta worship tends towards an orthodox understanding of Vedic and Hindu practice. Although it is liberal in the sense that it doesn't elevate the worship of any divinity over another, in practice it has been restricted to the upper varnas and excludes Shudra or Dalit worshippers. Despite these factors, Smartism remains an important and influential strand of Indic religion and one of the four major denominations of Hinduism.